All right, please find your seats. We're getting started now.
Don't worry, she's going to introduce us.
Okay.
There's a battery in this weekend. Hurry up.
Worst case, we can introduce ourselves.
Yes, we're going to introduce ourselves. You're going to say your blah, blah, blah very briefly. Me too.
No, it's good.
Two.
Thank you. Okay, please make your way back to your seats. So before we start the next panel, I really want to provide a framework about what the collaborative and what the partnership do. So the collaborative is a partnership between the New York State Council of Churches and the Interfaith Assembly on Housing and Homelessness. And as Mark earlier said, those organizations came together to offer pre-development technical assistance, education, and funding for houses of worship, congregations throughout New York State who would like to develop their properties. So the partnership offers technical assistance. So when Reverend Gillums was saying that where are the names, we have a bullpen of vetted professionals that we work with. So we work with Goldstein Hall, who is over, sitting over to your right, my right, and maybe your left. And we work with them. We work with Renato Matos and his law firm. We work with so many professionals throughout New York City that are bar none in terms of working and having a good work ethic and also being good at what they do. And so when we said to give me a call, that starts the process. But we want you and your organizations to have that information. And our pre-development loan program right now, we offer loans up to $45,000 to cover the pre-development conversations that Peter and the earlier panelists were talking about, so that you, as your congregation, can hire an attorney, can hire an architect, can hire pre-development professionals to work with. And we help guide you through that process. So without further ado, I will say that this conference is really intended to help also further our work. So we thank our sponsors very much for their support. And also we encourage those who would like to get involved and to support the partnership to reach out to myself, to Reverend Cook, or to Mark Greenberg, foundations. All support is welcome, because this work is important and it needs to continue. So without much ado, I'm going to introduce our next panel, which is really going to be centered on you, the faith community. So I guess I'm going to hand it over to Ted, Maida, and Gerard, and if you want to briefly introduce yourselves and take it away.
Ted, start.
Hi. My name's Ted Houghton. I'm the principal of Terra Linda Housing Services. I'm an independent development consultant working on financing and creating affordable, supportive, and transitional housing in New York City and upstate. I've had 35 years in the nonprofit and government sectors, back and forth in a variety of positions, and really that whole career has been mostly me giving people advice, and now a development consultant makes sense. I'm doing the same thing I always did, and there's a lot of us out there, and you should, when you're considering developing property that you own or trying to strategize what your faith-based organization should be doing next on this, there are a lot of people like me out there that know something about this part of the universe. speak to as many people as you can. It will give you a really good education and give you a good feel for what the subject matter is and the people that you can work with. And the more people you meet, the better you will become at helping your organization do the most it can do.
So he forgot to mention that he's also a board member of the Interfaith Affordable Housing Collaborative.
I am that.
Like Gerard and I. So my name is Meta Brunzema. I've been emceeing a little bit here on the side. That is just my hobby. I'm an architect and urban designer, and my firm is the Collective for Community, Culture, and Environment, and we do planning, architecture, and policy, and we work on mission-driven projects with houses of faith, nonprofits, and municipalities. So I get very excited not only about all the social aspects that we discussed in housing and homelessness prevention, but I'm also very excited about the environmental benefits of doing green building, energy saving, and integrating all of that into something that can benefit both people and the environment. So I'll pass it to Gerard, a fantastic developer also on our board.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gerard Delane. I'm a real estate developer focused on housing. I'd say well over half of that is affordable housing. And we have a number of projects that are faith-based development, where we're working with faith-based organizations to redevelop their property, as well as to create housing and to create jobs. So really excited to be here and to have the conversation with my panelists and to exchange knowledge and ideas with you guys today.
So this panel really is, as Rashida said, about you and your interests, because we've heard many, many hours of incredible testimony, discussions, provocations, and even historical perspectives. So, and of course, we cannot touch upon and know about all the details that you are dealing with in your congregations, your communities. And we'd love to hear from you a little bit. This is going to be a very free-flowing conversation. We're going to hopefully bounce back and forth and have a discussion and an enrichment of this conversation. So we have, I believe, a mic out there. So please raise your hand and tell us what aspects of today's proceedings were most interesting to you and most relevant to you, and what you could actually add to the conversations that we've had today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I come to these things, I often find the panels interesting, but I often feel that I wish I could just have the panelists in a room and I could ask my questions and have conversations with them directly. So this is your chance. Now is the time. We'd like to hear more from you. I'd like to start it off.
Hand back there.
Yeah, definitely, please.
Thank you for being the brave first question.
There we go.
All it takes is one.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. To be honest, from the lowly nonprofit, three guys working on an idea perspective, a lot of us don't think that there is any pathway between what we're doing in our office and what you guys are discussing right here today. And so literally with some of the panels, what you've done is given realistic, visible, feasible pathways that, nonprofits that are in the trenches really doing that, in the trench work can, apply some of these pathways. So I definitely want to thank everyone involved. Where's Rashida? She's amazing.
Right there.
Oh, there she. So yes. Yo, hands up for Rashida. She did her thing as usual. But I really would like a little bit more feedback on, and my brother on the left mentioned it, the pre-development, because that's where my organization, A Vision for Change, kind of does a lot of work. Before Leviticus and all these guys, we were putting deals together with real estate companies and bringing the pieces together, and we had to do that first with a vision, right? We have to inspire a vision where they first see it's possible.
Right.
And that's the hardest part, because if you've been told, indoctrinated to believing that you really can't do more than just be a renter. Right. You can't do more than just be a mom and pop shop on the corner. You can't own that building across the street. Yes, you can. And it's not about ownership, but it's about what we're doing in it, the activity. So again, if you can just speak to how you guys are allowing people to break into this space, or if you have guidance materials that can help organizations like myself to help these individuals. You know, I'm doing a lot of board of directors work where we're helping to train their mindset and help them. We're doing exercises so they can see, look, working together actually has benefits. You know, so I would like a little bit more information on the pre-development, education, and structure. And sorry for the lengthy question.
Well, as Rashida said just now, the Interfaith Affordable Housing Collaborative offers up to $45,000 to qualified houses of faith that call Rashida to ask them to help with the pre-development phase, in which the Interfaith Affordable Housing Collaborative funds professionals like architects and attorneys and development consultants and other required participants to actually help. And this is a loan program that Rashida can go into greater detail about, and there was also a handout on your table or on the table in the back there. We believe that there are many organizations that are doing this pre-development, and we believe that you, and in fact all of us here in this room, should advocate for more information as we discussed during this entire day.
Yeah. And when we talk about pre-development, I mean, that can be, pre-development can be, you know, working on the spreadsheets and getting everything set for your application for funding, but it also could be just walking by a parking lot and saying, hey, I'd like to build something there. I mean, there's no time limits on pre-development. It can go on for a long time. And what this $45,000 grant sized as a loan, so that, you know, it will get paid back when you get paid to develop. It's there to come in very early on so that you're not just spinning your wheels, and that you can get started. And really at that stage, it's all about viability. Is this really a property that has promise as an affordable housing project, or is useful in some way, or is it pie in the sky? You need to find that out and try to figure out whether or not you're going to be able to create affordable housing on that site, and really be able to decide, okay, this is worth my energy, and the sooner you know, the better. And that's what the funding is for.
So, but let's hear a few more questions or comments from all of you. And it can be just something that you'd like to react to, that you felt was important or less important, that we discussed today. We just want to feel a little bit, hear from you, how you felt the proceedings went during the day.
Can I add one very quick comment to the gentleman's question? No, please don't forget. I'm coming right to you, sister. Give me a second. You know, so I teach at NYU, and one of the early things we teach is the 8 steps of the development process. Step number 1 is vision. What are you doing? What is possible? Step number 2 is financing. So to your question, the earlier steps is what is possible here, right? So, you know, from the church products I see that go well, they come up with their wish list of what they want, what they need, what's their vision, and marry that with how do we pay for all this stuff? And what is the revenue generating thing that's going to help us accomplish our goals, as well as that the building can sustain? Those are some of the earlier steps, but as she mentioned, you know, reach Rashida, and we could schedule some time to help you kind of this early stage of how do you get to the point of this becoming a reality. So, all right, sister.
Let's hear some more. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank New York State Council of Churches and all your partners for putting together this very informative production. Thank you, Sister Rashida and Reverend Peter. Very good, very good. So it's mixed with, of course, Mr. Greenberg. It's mixed with comment, recommendations, and maybe a question. I'm an educator, so as I shared with the folks at my table, I have education written across my forehead and Brooklyn across my chest. I love you, Manhattan. Where Brooklyn at?
We're in Harlem, but we don't judge you. But we love you. Love you too, Brooklyn.
Okay. So, first of all, and you recommended part of it when you cut me off. No, I'm joking. When you said keep because I'm the fact sheet queen.
Yes.
I love putting things in one fact sheet. You bullet it.
Yes.
Now, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you have access to whatever it is. And that's what I think needs to be developed. But one important recommendation I have for everyone, when you walk past that empty lot or you see a building or whatever you see and you envision, always have that goal. As an educator, we put that aim on the blackboard and we always point right back to the aim so that as you going down a rabbit hole, you can always come back to what the ultimate goal is. What is that ultimate goal? What is that aim? Then you can have the bullets under that. So we can, all of us that work in this realm, develop those fact sheets that can go on our website. Then organizations can have access to it. And then they can press on a link. They go, oh, okay, having pre-funding. I can go on this link and see who does that. You know, developing, connecting with they can click on that link. So that's just a recommendation. The other point that I wanted to make, I completely forgot what it was, but I should have wrote it down in notes, or maybe I could just stand back up and offer it. But I really like these opportunities, and folk do not realize the importance of having this information. So the day after, tomorrow or Friday, when folks are going around looking for, how can I do this, how can I do that? Yes, they should have came here, but how do they connect?
Yes.
So putting that out there is something that we definitely need to consider. How do we keep one another informed and connected throughout the time until this is now an annual thing, until next year as we keep growing? So how do we keep that, you know, keep that constant going on? So,
well, you can always visit the Interfaith Affordable Housing Collaborative's website by simply searching exactly that on Google, and you will find lots of resources and Rashida's phone number and email, and much, much more. So let's hear more questions.
But just to say, I think that you're onto something, though, that I think there is a moment here where there's a lot of attention and a lot of interest in faith-based development. Because we have such a crisis in affordable housing, everybody's looking for property classes, properties that are viable for affordable housing development, and faith-based groups often have those properties. And so there's a lot of interest, and that's going to keep up the momentum. We're seeing legislation in Albany. We're seeing funding streams that are directed at this and available for this. And so I think there's a lot of energy there. Now it's about directing that energy. I think that a motivation for, you know, faith-based groups are mission-driven, yes, but you've got your own challenges to work with, and usually it's about we need to fix up and maintain our sanctuary, and we need money for that. How do we do that? HPD, the housing agencies, HPD, HCR, the city and state housing agencies, they don't pay to build churches, But they do pay to build affordable housing, and when you build affordable housing, you're entitled to a percentage developer fee. That's a percentage of the total development cost, and you can spend that developer fee however you want. You earned it. And you can also sell the property for the affordable housing to the deal and everything like that. So there are ways to raise money that is unencumbered that you can then direct to do repairs to the sanctuary, to rebuild the sanctuary and things like that. And so having consultants and advisors, attorneys, architects to tell you what's possible early on will help direct you to get to where you want. At the same time, also understand within your mission-driven activities, you will be able to achieve these other goods for the world, like building affordable units that will house people who are formerly homeless or people who just need a little bit of help to become housing stable.
Real quick, I remember. Bishop Johnny Ray Youngblood, he built Nehemiah houses
Correct.
in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And he is an excellent example, and I think information like that should always be at these events. Should always be shared. Just make it plain, you know.
Right.
See and put it out there.
I love it.
So I just wanted to throw that out and big up my friend.
I love it. I do want to add, I want to add a Harlem when Calvin Butts was also brilliant as well. So Abyssinian Development Corporation did a lot of wonderful work. We got this Harlem Brooklyn thing going on. I love it.
All right,
All
we
right,
have a
next.
question. We have a question.
This gentleman
Please.
was first, I believe, and then that gentleman.
No, this gentleman was first. Okay. Go ahead. Find yourself a microphone.
Oh, he has a microphone.
Mark has it.
Go ahead.
Well, it's okay. We're going to get to you.
All right, sorry to bump you out here. Again, the gift of networking. Ted, could you just share briefly what was new to me today about the loophole you found in HUD with regard to you saying we can own that building across the street? You're faster than me. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. What gentleman is speaking about, we had a quick conversation in the hallway, and we were discussing potentially that HUD has a loophole where residents can actually come together as something called a resident management corporation, which is a little different than TA and RC, and essentially you can request that funds go directly to you versus the PHA or other entities. You can apply for funds on your own. You can, actually
Manage it
be in a
yourself.
position to take over management. So that's what you're asking me to speak about. Sorry.
All right, we have the gentleman there.
Hello, my name is Jim Posner. I'm a newcomer to these conversations, but I know some of the people here. I am the chair emeritus of a very small family foundation that was started by my parents, and I was chair for many years, and then I passed it along to the third generation. In my experience in that and in other business careers, I would mention the importance of having follow-up notes and conversations and memoranda of understandings that you might have of your conversations. For example, I live in a co-op, and the co-op has board meetings, and they were told by their lawyer, just be very general. Don't be specific about minutes and things you write down. Now, I don't think that's very good advice, but in any case, that's what a lot of people get that advice because they're worried about legal liability and stuff like that. I'm just worried about people's memory of what was said and what was agreed at a given meeting a couple of years ago. But I would mention to you, and I'll try to be quick, but I think that co-op boards are one place where people in Manhattan can start to say, are there places where they might want to make a contribution as a building or as a board or as individuals, and through one of these organizations to do something which might be called pre-development or something else. And it doesn't need to be just in affordable housing. It could have been in something in workforce development, or
Correct.
bringing interns from abroad, or clean water, or anything else. And you can tie some of these together. But going at the other extreme, my brother was a consultant for lots of government contracts from the federal government, and he would win his fair share. But the problem is that was only the first step, because after he would win a contract, the people that lost on it could still protest and try to get it reviewed and hope to negotiate part of the contract or to get it reversed. And then most of the contracts that I've seen with New York City and New York State have what's called a force majeure clause, and it's that whatever they've agreed to, they can override and cancel the contract, sort of without cause. And with the current political environment in Washington, that happens even at the federal level. But I think that you need to have somebody give you advice about what you want to write down. If you thought you had an agreement from a conversation, just to put that as an informal thing. But don't fall into the trap of thinking that you're making a restriction on gifts. Also, because people that are giving grants are very concerned from their accountants of, was this a general operating grant, or was this just a conversation, or was this a suggestion or a commitment or a multi-year grant? Because these organizations often are in cash-based accounting, so they might be told by their accountant that they can only make grants or gifts or things for a calendar year. So there are lots of other things just to keep your eyes open from this wonderful session. I've learned so much here, and I think it's been just fabulous. I'm looking forward to having Rashida give me a copy of the recording, because it's not what I say to the people in my family or the foundations that I work with, but if I can give them a copy of a 20-minute Zoom call or something like that, let them play it at their leisure. But just, I might be talking too long, but I'm just trying to think of, these are things even before the pre-development. These are things
Right.
when you're talking about it with other friends and family, or our family is a member of a synagogue for a long time, and that's another place where there are a number of people with means and who support things and are very charitable, but so you need to find out what else they're talking about, and I'm trying to think about how to get people into that conversation where you can get it up to the point of pre-development without it becoming a legal controversy or something else. It's not really a question, and I hope it wasn't a speech.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. So please, do we have any other
Yes, I think
comments?
we have
Yes,
two
we
more
see a
questions,
hand.
one from me and one from Peter.
And then we get to do the lottery.
Okay, then
and
why don't
drinks.
Sister Claire go first, then me and Peter.
This is 350, so we're over.
I'm going to throw a snake in the water, folks.
Uh-oh.
This whole thing is morally corrupt. Our wages have not moved anywhere since '74. What we earned then, we're earning the same in terms of cost of living, taxes, all those things, even that beautiful word tariff. We have not moved anywhere financially as city people working. Yet the housing market has the costs exploding, and they're going to continue to explode. And part of me, I don't want to buy in. It's wrong, it's too much. What the government is doing is paying these vouchers for what you can afford, allegedly, to what's being charged. How long is that rubber band going to stretch? Somehow, we've got to cut the tree at the root, challenge the question, and fix this darn thing. I don't want to just see it going up and up and up, and us at the bottom staying down, down, down. So that's my snake in the water, just where my heart is right now, feeling complicit in something that seems not resolvable in a moral way. But thank you for letting me speak.
That's a really important point.
You bet.
And I think
Yeah.
that with affordable housing, in the affordable housing structure, tenants are limited to paying 30% of their rent, whether 30% of their income towards rent, whether their income is $100,000 a year or $1 a year. And the idea is to protect people and allow them to stay in their homes by keeping the rent payment, the monthly rent payment, to a manageable size at 30%. It's a real challenge because there's always somebody that wants to make, well, why not 40% or everything like that? But 30% is already a significant amount, but it's manageable. The rest of the money comes from government and other sources to make up the difference between what it costs to finance and build housing and operate that housing and what people can afford to pay. We have a real problem in a mismatch in our country between incomes that have not grown as quickly as the cost of housing. It now costs about $10,000 a year per apartment just to keep the lights on and heat it, to have somebody managing the security and doing all the other kinds of paperwork it takes to run that building. It's about $10,000 a unit per year. That's a lot of money to start out with, and that's not even counting the amount of money it costs to finance it and construct that building and then do repairs. So we have a real challenge in getting it so that people have enough money to pay for a good place to live. And that's what the challenge that HPD and HCR and the housing agencies have before them, is how can they meet that challenge when there are we have 100,000 people in homeless shelters each night right now in New York City. Right. We have many more people who are paying 50% or more of their incomes towards rent. It's a massive problem that is happening all over the country, and now in many other countries that didn't have housing problems before. And we're asking cities and states to solve it. We need help from the federal government to do it as well. But there's a lot of people that are working very hard to make this happen, and trying to put together all those funding sources in order to create this kind of housing is a real challenge. It's time consuming, and that's what the people in this room are about. One of the biggest challenges is finding property, finding a site. You can't be a developer without a site. And faith-based organizations, churches and synagogues, and have parking lots. They have land that has been historically with the church, or for a variety of scenarios. So that land, having that available, makes it so that it will be less expensive to build because you don't have to go out and pay top dollar for new property, right? And it puts us in the ballpark to actually build something great. And right. I'm excited about the potential, because I'll bet you within this room here, there's probably people know about enough properties and sites that they have control of that we could build hundreds, if not thousands, of units just in this room today.
Right.
Correct.
And
so, real quick.
You first, then I'll go.
So I just wanted to, I just saw a hand up there, the lady.
Did Gerard want to answer also? I saw that.
Yeah, I did want to respond to the...
Yeah.
So maybe you do that real quick, and then we get to you, okay?
All right, perfect. I think we have a big problem right now. We are in the middle of a housing crisis. We do not have enough of it, and we're not creating enough of it. And the longer this drags out, it's going to get more expensive, right? I'm sure we all in this room know a 20-year-old still living at home. Everybody in this room. You know a 25-year-old still living at home, right? Everybody in this room. We are not producing enough of it. We're not building starter homes anymore, right? It's hard to start a family, right? In New York is an extreme example, but this is a nationwide problem, right? We have kids every year graduating from high school, and we are not building housing for them. We have kids every year graduating from college, and we are not producing enough of. So part of the struggle right now is, what do we do now, right? Do we build more? Which some of us believe building more is one way of solving scarcity. And I'm biased because I'm a developer and architect. I build stuff. So I come with my bias to the conversation. But I think it's a nationwide problem, right? You look in LA, you look at Atlanta, you look at Miami, they all have the same problem, which is housing is getting extremely expensive. It's growing faster than everybody's salary. And how do we solve it? In the government incentives and grants, that helps solve it some. So that's where the faith-based community is here, right? We are in communities, right? We have control of land, we have control of resources, we have connections to those communities, we have connections to the elected officials, right? We are a big voting bloc in those communities. They care about your opinion. You can help them move policy too. Say, hey, we need more housing in this community, right? There's a whole, I'm sure you've heard of the term NIMBYism, not in my backyard, right? It's an issue, and it's everywhere. It happens everywhere. That happens in urban communities, that happens in suburban communities. How about the church say, we want to create housing in our community. We want our church members to live here, right? My ex used to live down the street here. She grew up in the Upper West Side. Everybody from her generation moved away because there's no new housing in that neighborhood, right? And that church lost population because the next generation wasn't able to stay in that community, right? So that's my comment to you is we got to work together on how do we solve this housing crisis. It's a big issue, but we can work together to try to solve it.
So I have an opinion on that, but I'd like to ask the lady in the back who's been waiting very patiently for her comment.
I think that part of the crisis is that people don't understand exactly what's going on. They don't actually understand some of the things that they think they know. Like the 30% of your gross income, okay? When you put it in the context of affordable housing, you're talking about Section 8. If you put it in the context of low-income housing, which nobody's speaking about, okay, that's Section 9, which comes with protections for the tenants. Section 8 doesn't have that. People are becoming homeless because they make the switch, okay? Because 30% of your income in Section 9 is your rent. Your gross income, 30% of it, that's your rent. In Section 8, you're paying 30% of your income, but that is your portion of the market value of that apartment.
Right.
So now when you shove seniors into that type of a situation, when that subsidy goes away, where do they go? Where do they live?
Well, the Section
Yes.
8 pays the revenue to the building, which closely matches the market rent. As the gentleman mentioned, it costs X amount of money just to run the building, right? Let's say it costs $800 to run the apartment. Well, if the tenant's paying $400, the building's running into a negative. So that's a little struggle with public housing type housing. It's hard to sustain the building.
And I hear what you're saying, but as a public housing resident, okay, I've paid a lot more than $400 for rent.
Of course.
Okay? I've lived there for 35 years, okay? Now I need to get a break, okay? I'm a senior, okay? I raise children and grandchildren. I'm getting Social Security, and they're planning on upskilling me so that I can afford my apartment after they do this conversion, okay? Is that fair? I have 7 herniated discs. I've got arthritis everywhere, okay?
Right.
Is that the life that we want for our seniors, that you're gonna work until you die? When do we get to experience the American dream?
Right.
Just my opinion and my question.
Very good question. Okay, so who is next?
This gentleman in the back behind you, turn around.
Well, Peter? Father? Okay. So we're going to go father, and then we're going to go, okay.
Here's another one. All right, this one, the gentleman in the back with the brown coat also had his hand up.
Okay. Oh,
We'll get to everybody.
Okay.
We'll get to everybody.
Father, did you want to answer a question? You're good? You asked it already. Okay. Oh, Peter?
Oh, Peter.
Okay, so these are really good things that people are saying. I like the energy, I like the anger, I like the frustration, okay? And let's keep that going. We have what I really want to hear from you, what we all want to hear from you, is if you had a magic wand and you could create the housing policy you wanted to create, based on what you've heard today or on your own experience, what would you say? You know, what would that be? You know, and next to that, I would just say that for the partnership, that this is not a one-stop shop thing today. This is sort of an icon, a beginning for further conversation. So our plan is to do targeted seminars by Zoom and in person. We may do another regional gathering upstate. We haven't talked as much about, say, rural housing here, which is also a massive crisis. People think, oh, well, that's just a city problem. No, you know, you got people in desperate poverty, you know, in a lot of our rural communities. So we're really committed to educating and getting people together to do this kind of work. And then I guess the final thing I would just say is that, yes, we do have $45,000 loans we give out, but that money is limited. And we have to keep replenishing that source. So I don't want you to think that we're Wells Fargo and we have, you know, 50 pre-development loans we can offer. But we have a bit, but this is where we, and not just us, but others, need to call on the state and our banking community, and our foundations, and our donors, and our church bodies to create those funds that make it possible for this work to continue. And one of the things, I mean, we've thought about is requiring an allocation from the state that goes into a pre-development fund that could be accessed. There's some technical issues with that, but you know, we have to start thinking creatively about it. But as Gerard said, we have an affordable housing crisis. We're just not building enough. We're just not. And all the hand-wringing that is happening in Washington and Albany is just not cutting it. And we need to get some courage and some strength to call up our elected officials, tell them we want some good legislation passed. You got to show up at your town board meetings when you got angry neighbors who don't want to cite a development in your community. Put your hand up and say, yeah, I want to do this. So anyway, that was a little rambly, but let's hear more of your ideas about what you think we need to be doing here.
All right, the gentleman in the back.
But while you're thinking of that, I just want to hear, there are some things that have happened that make things that weren't possible before possible. And since we have two developers up there, I wanted to hear from both of you while people are thinking of your magic bullet. Tell us what is now possible that wasn't possible because of the City of Yes and because of 485X. These are things that, tools we didn't have before, and here are two developers who are keeping up on it. So while we're thinking about dreams, let's think about some dreams that actually became true that we can now utilize to build affordable housing.
So, I mean,
Well,
Gerard, do you want to talk about the the zoning rules have often been put up there as, oh, this is a hindrance on building housing, and it's certainly that's what it's intended. It's we want to have a city that makes sense. We don't want a gas station next to a school, et cetera, et cetera. So we have zoning. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It makes logical sense. What's happened is that over a century, zoning rules have made it more and more difficult to build housing and has slowed down housing creation. And now we have the situation that Gerard described, where we're not building fast enough and people's incomes aren't supporting the market to do so either. And the longer we wait to solve this, the worse the situation's going to become. Right. I was curious, because we have Gerard builds a lot of housing, and so anytime I can hear what he has to say, I want to listen. So, just when you're looking for partners, what are you looking for? If you're hearing from faith-based organizations that say we want to build affordable housing, we want you to help, what are you looking for?
Excellent question. I was going to add to the young lady's comment here, governance. So there are, faith-based organizations where the leader makes all the decisions, and there's some where the board and the body makes decisions, and then there's situations where there's conflict.
There's the Presbyterians where they have like
where they there's a few like Episcopals, where the Methodists where they have like, you know what I mean? So sometimes the structure is they don't necessarily move in one accord. So kind of walking in, what we try to do is like, all right, what's your decision-making tree? Or what's that path? And then we try to work with them. Development's hard. In general, development is hard. So trying to get them comfortable with this very difficult, very complicated process. I'm an educator. So just trying to help them feel informed as we kind of walk through that process is that's the goal. I do want to answer Mark's question. 45X, which is a replacement to the 421A tax abatement, we were looking at a church opportunity. So in New York City, to do affordable housing, LIHTC financing, you really need to be over 30, 40 units for it to really make sense. You really need to be over 50, 60 units for it to really make sense. But as you all know, there's lots of church facilities around the city that you can only fit 10. You can only fit 20. So I said to Mark that time, I said, well, maybe, and this, I think it was in Bed-Stuy, I think. I said, well, maybe they should do 45X. Huh? It is in Brooklyn. It is in Brooklyn. You win. It is in Brooklyn. But, I said to him, I said, listen, they can only build 10 units here. 30% of the units have to be affordable to get the property tax abatement. So they have 7 market rate units and 3 affordable units in a new church facility. Right?
And it
like, that's not bad.
And I think it makes a good point in that money comes in many different forms. It could be just a cash grant, but it's more often an equity investment or a loan, like a first mortgage.
Correct.
From a bank that wants a steady return. But government also subsidizes housing with tax breaks.
Correct.
And so this 485X is a tax break for privately developed housing, as long as you include a certain proportion of units as affordable.
Correct.
The city will waive the taxes for a period of time. And faith-based organizations, by virtue of being nonprofits, may be able to access other kinds of tax abatements and tax exemptions that a private developer can't. And that's one of the things that a faith-based group can bring to the table. Not just property, but also access to things that only nonprofits have access to. And the private developer values those. And so having people to advise you on what you're bringing to the table, what's advantageous that you're bringing to the table, why does that developer want to meet with you, is a very important part of the conversation.
Absolutely. So let's hear from the lady in the back.
What kinds of things are you referring to? That nonprofits
So, for one, you have the land. And if you're a faith-based organization, you're not paying property taxes. So you have a little more patience than, let's say, somebody with a parking lot, for example. And then, as he was mentioning, there's certain tax abatements like, 420C tax abatement that a nonprofit that owns a significant portion of the project, that's a part of a joint venture development. The developer gets the benefit of no property taxes, and they can, in theory, pay more money for the land.
And there's also certain funding streams to develop affordable housing that are only available to nonprofits.
That is
Like the
correct.
Homeless Housing Assistance Program is
Correct.
the first one that comes to mind. I would also add that something that faith-based groups bring to the table, and you alluded to this before, is community support. Anything that gets built in any neighborhood is going to
Yes.
have somebody that doesn't like it and is going to organize against it. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always going to be some controversy, and you need to build consensus that the community wants this building in their neighborhood. And for affordable housing, sometimes there's a lot of support for it, sometimes there's a lot of opposition. But that doesn't just happen organically, it's organized.
Agreed.
And I think that faith-based groups are in such a good position to organize support for affordable housing developments. It's really, don't underestimate the power of that. It really is important to the project.
We never did get to that gentleman with the brown coat in the back.
That's right.
Get to that guy, and then the young lady in the black shirt, she had raised her hand as well.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to I wanted to express some appreciation for the folks in the room who expressed some, I think, righteous indignation over income and wealth inequality in this country, because that problem is very connected, obviously, with the shortage of affordable housing. It is absolutely true. We need to build more housing. But the affordability problem, there's really two sides of it. One is that, yes, rents and the cost of homeownership are too high. But the flip side of that, all things are relative, is that wages are too low. And that's a problem that's been a half a century in the making, as somebody here pointed out. What I'd like to maybe draw some attention to is that when your congregation engages in housing development, you have an opportunity to address both sides of that problem. Yes, you can insist on a development agenda that generates maximum affordability.
Right.
But the other thing we should all be thinking about is that housing is not just built by lawyers and architects who are absolutely crucial participants in the process. It's also built by who?
Plumbers, electricians, painters.
Electricians, plumbers, laborers, painters, workers, right? I find that too often in the policy conversations in New York City, we forget that housing is built by workers, and that too often these workers are highly exploited. I think people know in New York City, large numbers of workers on construction sites across the city are paid cash in hand. The developers the contractors primarily do not have the proper insurance. People are fired on the way down if there's an accident on a job site. Those are problems that we have a very long-standing solution to called labor unions.
Yay!
When your congregation is considering taking on development, please insist on doing it with union labor. The developer community in this state has been very successful in insisting that most of the subsidies that folks on the stage have mentioned do not require labor protections. In other states are more progressive. You go across the river to New Jersey, you go to Connecticut, you go to Minnesota, you'll find that if public money is in a project, it has to be done with prevailing wage and labor standards. We need to do that here. And so I hope your congregations will also participate in a fight for a policy agenda that puts labor protections, that brings more public money into housing development, that's needed, and also make sure that that money is creating good union jobs. Because ultimately, it does not make sense for us to build affordable housing and in the process have workers whose wages are so low that they can't afford a decent place to live. So that's my spiel. Let me just say one other thing. There are resources. This can be done. I work for an organization called the AFL-CIO Housing Investment Trust. It takes union pension dollars and invests it in 100% union-built affordable housing. We know this can be done because we've done it 618 times. That's the number of projects we've completed.
Amazing.
We've invested over $2 billion in New York City and would like to invest a lot more. So if your congregation is considering a project, please come find me. We provide construction financing, permanent financing, up to $300 million per project generally, some amount of pre-development financing, and we'd love to partner with you to create the great affordable housing and the good union jobs that our city and state need.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And your name again? What is your name?
My name's Eric Foreman.
And your card.
He rose
There's
his
another
hand.
question.
I think the woman in the black shirt, did she raise her hand again? I thought she did. No? Good? Okay. This gentleman here with the blue jacket.
He never spoke.
Okay, go ahead, and then we'll come here.
Well, I did earlier.
We'll get to you.
Okay. So, Mark, where's Mark? So, I want to
He's
say.
going first, and then we're coming to you, sir.
Okay, Mark Greenberg. Okay.
Mark Greenberg.
Go.
Thank you for inviting us, Lefse, here. And speaking of dreams, I'll say this. Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for something. I just had to throw that in. Now, Brother Gerard, right?
Yes.
That's your name? Is that your name?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Gerard? Okay.
Gerard.
Okay, I'm from New Orleans originally, and
Wonderful.
you mentioned something about being 20 and 25, living at home, da-da-da-da.
Yes.
That's one of the main reasons why I moved from Kenner, Louisiana, where the main airport is.
Okay.
Where my mama because the culture is very matriarchal, and you have to live with your mama
Okay.
and all of that.
Right.
The dad is thrown to the side, but mostly it's your mama.
Okay.
But anywho, so being 33, living with my mama, I felt, the term hidden homeless, because if my name ain't on the lease,
Right.
and if I'm not, even if I'm contributing a little bit, still I'm considered hidden homeless.
Correct.
So that's what I want. I guess I just answered the question. I was going to throw the question to you, but even if you're living with if you're over 25, 35, 45, or what have you, and again, and your name is not on the lease, and you're not head of household, and whether you have subsidy or you don't, you're still hidden homeless,
Right.
Until you get your own. It ain't
Correct.
nothing like your own. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So
Yeah, I mean, the
Thank
unintended
you.
consequence of that, and please come to this gentleman here.
Yes. Gentlemen.
The unintended consequence of that, sir, is that young people are getting married later. They're having less children. They're starting later in life. Is an unintended consequence of this housing crisis that we have. Gentleman here at the blue jacket.
Yeah, real quick, while I was walking over to him, the 2 things you made me forget, I just remembered. I wanted to say out loud that Maddie's message was powerful because
Yes.
we were all put here to live in Eden. We were put here to live in Eden. So what are we doing with one another? The other thing was education.
Yes.
How can we, and I can work with us
We'll work
in
together
doing
on it.
this, how can we get this information into schools? Because there was a point brought up earlier about as we move on, who's left to continue and maintain these properties and continue this effort? Who is that? So that comes in a cycle
Right.
of how you prepare your communities. It starts in the schools.
Right.
And then you have people that are ready that can also pass on this information so it can continue. So the education was one of the main points I wanted to bring up. So let's work together on that.
Yes, let's work together.
All right.
I asked one question before, but I'm finding that my attention now has changed because most times I'm in audiences where in the audience there are probably 10 or 20 different subjects of high priority. And my family and the organizations I work with, there's not just one set of opposition, but some people are worried about health or old age or income or foreign relationships or war and outer space. So that I think that that's a limitation on this kind of single focus. It's good to have a theme, and I came here because we're not a housing funder, but we do fund an awful lot of different things, and then it's a question of how do you have the governance and who sets the agenda and what's on the topic for that discussion on that theme. And that's what I'm missing, not in this meeting. This meeting's been fabulous, but which I wanted to convey to Peter and Rashida is that think about when you might have a co-sponsorship meeting with somebody else who's working on something else, like post-incarceration. People coming out and need reentry, need housing.
Right.
But I haven't heard anywhere about that here, but I work with organizations on that topic, and there are other topics like that too. We work with organizations on disability and mental illness. Now, they need housing, but I'm trying to do this as collaboration with other organizations that we fund, where I can say, can we see a collaboration between an organization for the frail elderly and a food organization that is expanding its network? So I think that that's something where opposition doesn't just arise out of nothing. It arises out of other kinds of interests.
Yeah. Right, and the idea is not to have people compete for the same kind of funding, but actually to collaborate to make the most of the available money and resources and intelligence.
Or to compete with people that are in the same ecosystem that you are in.
Right.
Exactly. So do we have any more comments on that?
I'd like to just build off of what you're saying. I mean, there are the housing crisis, the housing shortage is and it's a tired metaphor, but it is like a game of musical chairs. The most vulnerable groups are the ones left without housing. So you end up people re-entering the community from incarceration, or people with mental illness or frail elderly. Yes, young people trying to make it, getting out of the house. Those are the people that are going to have the most trouble breaking into the housing market, and that's who we're trying to help. I think that one of the things that we don't often realize, outside of the housing development world, but once you get into the housing development world, it turns out that a faith-based organization with property that wants to redevelop that property in order to create a nest egg to repair the sanctuary or other purposes, you go in with this idea, well, we got to find a market rate developer to build luxury housing so we can get as much money as we possibly can. But that conflicts with the mission of the faith-based organization. It's not as big a conflict as we think, because there's actually money available in the affordable housing project that the church can benefit from, or faith-based organization can benefit from. There is plenty of money available. I mean, there's not enough, but when you do a project, there is adequate money. When you're building for formerly homeless people supportive housing, you can still earn a developer fee that helps you stabilize the finances of your faith-based organization at the same time that you're fulfilling your mission to help people who need it the most. And so I would just make sure that you take a look and don't think that you have to build a luxury tower in order to save your church. You can help homeless people and build housing for them and save your church. And that's one of the benefits that people don't realize.
Right. I want to add something. Rashida, she said this twice. Education. Yeah. I think a clever idea that maybe we can come up with is to create some case studies so people can see examples of successful faith-based development partnerships.
So this morning's panel, I think, was a living case study where we had pastors from all across New York State who have developed and are actively developing and have built their projects. We had Bishop Darius Pridgeon from Buffalo, True Bethel Commons and True Bethel Homes. We had Reverend O'Connor from the Tree of Life. We had Ralph Fasano from Concern, and we had Matthew from Sisters for Charity. And so these are wonderful case studies and wonderful to accumulate them in one spot, which would be amazing.
Exactly. We need to package that somehow
Put it all in one spot.
so that people who aren't in this room can still get that information, and they can reflect on it and show it to their flock when they go back to their faith-based organization. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That if you're not here, she said that we can continue to learn and grow together.
I think you've just written the advertisement for our summer intern.
Right. We should actually ask the audience to build on this train of thought, what other information you would like us to provide that would complement what you learned today.
One other question right here. Kat?
Hi, my name's Kat. I'm here today on my own, whatever, but I'm also with SHOUT, which is the supportive housing organized and United Tenants of New York City, but we're also reaching out to the state, the rest of the state.
Okay.
But, and so I loved what you've said recently about the supportive housing, or like, supportive housing is so complicated because there's like 13 different subdivisions. You can have it for being a high frequent Medicaid user, you can have it for domestic violence, aging out of foster care. So there's a lot of newer
Formerly homeless, a lot of them.
And some people who are currently homeless don't want to live in supportive housing because of the derogatory reputation they think supportive housing has. But one challenge I keep hearing or finding myself hearing is developers. Developers build a building, they think it's great, they think it's spectacular, but then the providers, the people who are going to be providing the services, they know how to write an awesome RFP, and they know how to totally attend the right politicians' fundraisers, but they do not provide any support. And that's ironically or not ironically why SHOUT became SHOUT, to actually start passing laws to advocate for the supportive housing tenants and applicants. And so I'm wondering if there's how to collaborate between, like my apartment, I can hear my next door neighbor, my upstairs neighbors caused 11 floods, but it turns out that's because the building is built poor quality. But the provider's always like, oh, that's not our problem. They gave us this building, so that's, that was the developers and the builders, it's not us. So it's kind of like all of this back and forth. Like, I'm hoping to figure out ways to build quality housing for the new housing that's gonna come. How to work with us to learn what needs to be improved. But also there's some programs that are like not supportive housing that I miss, that like the apartments I lived in California, they had a library, they had a gym, it was California, not Manhattan, so some advantages there. But they had more community aspects of living in an apartment complex. And I actually found, I was trying to find the name of it, but there's one place in Brooklyn, that they had a coffee shop, a library, parking underneath, which is like how you can get more money. But they also just had like a tool rental. You didn't have to go buy a blender. You could just you check out a blender and then return it the next day. And like that's the type of supportive housing or formerly homeless people would need to start to like have access to that instead of having to keep everything in a less than 400 square foot studio. So those are just some ideas I wanted to share in case you have any thoughts, or like how to get more, I don't know, I guess like increase the quality but increase the services or the follow through, so the providers can actually provide instead of just smiling for the camera and not actually providing any support for people.
Right. I think this really echoes what was said this morning about bringing all the stakeholders to the table very early on, so that it's not, the providers of services are not essentially a second thought or not even involved at the beginning, because creative ideas like a tool shed or a music room or even a pool or whatever, those things happen at the very early brainstorming stages, and that is why all of us are very interested in having those conversations early on.
I mean, there's a wide variety of housing types and housing quality. I mean, that's just the reality when so many different nonprofits, so many different private developers, so many different people are involved with different levels of expertise, different priorities, and et cetera, et cetera. I think in general, supportive housing I mean, is really impressive when you see it in New York City. I mean, Ralph Fasano was up here and talked a little bit about the St. James Terrace residence that he just completed with St. James Church. Jason Abate was critical in that representing the church. The church had a problem in that they had a very old building that needed a lot of work, and they had property that they needed to sell that in order to save the church. And they set out to do it as a market rate. Ralph was able to convince them to actually do it as a supportive housing residence, and the church was able to make enough money to save the church, to build a community kitchen downstairs in the new building, and to create hundreds of units of affordable and supportive housing, some of it for formerly homeless people who need supportive services. Concern is a very good, not only a very good developer, but also a very good provider. So they have a gym, they have all sorts of amenities there. When you walk in there, seeing is believing. And I appreciate the comments about the need for education. I would encourage everybody to see what's possible. Go up to St. James Church on Jerome Avenue in the Bronx and see St. James Terrace. It's really something else. You know, we can talk about supportive housing but until you actually see what the buildings look like and how the residents are doing, it's really hard to describe it secondhand.
And I'll add to that. I think in New York City, if you're going to finance a building as affordable housing, at least 30% of the units have to be supportive. So New York City has been a big producer of supportive housing, but I hear your point about how do we make it better. I think we should continue to advocate. So the panel right before us, Rachel, she runs an organization called New York Housing Conference, and they're focused specifically on housing policy. So like they help push the city of yes. You know, they can help work on how to improve supportive housing. And obviously you know about Shinny, the supportive housing network, that we can help advocate. Yes, by the time the property manager shows up, the building's done, built, finished. They don't have as much say. But if we can help for future buildings, help to make the sound insulation in the building better, for future residents, we can make it
and
better
to identify problems with the building before they become unmanageable. I mean,
right.
It's about how you build it, but it's also about how you maintain it. And a lot of times the maintaining buildings in good condition is a challenge with, with lower rents. I mean, the financing has to be such that it's able to maintain the building in good condition. And sometimes that doesn't always happen, and you have to be on the ball to make sure that you recognize these issues early on and then go out and advocate for the funding that's necessary to fix them. And that's a process that, the more we build community, the more that we communicate with each other, the more likely we're gonna have success.
I do want to add one controversial comment.
Oh. Let's go for that. Controversy. Okay.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm managing a building for a faith-based organization. Collecting rent is really hard, guys. And literally, this faith-based organization is struggling to keep the building functioning because 25% of the tenants don't pay rent. This is controversial, guys, because we know we're in New York City, which is very tenant-friendly. And it's very hard to evict people, but this faith-based organization built this building and is having to put money in to help us cover some of the bills sometimes, right? And it is painful to say, hey, we're short X amount of dollars. We need you to send us some money so we can pay the mortgage. Hey, we got a Con Ed bill. We need you to send us some more money. So the rent collection issue in New York it's tough. And I'm saying this because one day you guys are gonna run buildings and own buildings. And this is the reality of being a landlord of a building, which, I pray all of you will help create home ownership and help create building ownership. But that is on the other side. That's a real thing. So
I want to say thank you so much to our panelists for your knowledge that you shared. I do want to say
Rashida.
just one thing about I do want to say just one thing about rent collection, and then circle back to our keynote speaker, Maddie Johnson, where she challenged us really to think about housing in a different way. And so maybe the challenge is to faith-based organizations that do rent to those who are low income and deeply low income to find new ways of making up that difference, of making up the rent, so that people who are low income aren't also struggling so much, that we have to challenge ourselves to figure out a new system. We can't get blood from a stone. There's only so much that the people themselves can produce. So we have to call on all each other to do that. Okay, we have one more question, and then we're going to wrap. We're going to do the raffle. We're going to do some closing remarks, and then we're going to enjoy some wonderful snacks as we start to head out.
So thank you for being here. So my name is Raquel Irizarry, and I am with the Social Justice Committee from the United Church of Christ Metropolitan Association. And my question is, and you guys may have mentioned this before, have you considered the possibility of having people have ownership in their own, in other words, owning their own unit? It's very interesting when someone owns something, they feel more responsible in terms of like, I need to pay for this because this is actually mine.
Right.
It's, you know, my blood, sweat, and tears type of thing. And it can build community. So I'm not, so again, just trying to think out of the box.
Right.
I've heard of the
that's a
rent-to-own ideas, which I think are very interesting because people start paying rent, and that accumulates, and then they end up becoming the owner of it, which is a very different, you know, relationship to the property as a renter.
And there's a whole array of affordable housing financing sources, some of which are directed to encourage affordable home ownership, to allow people with lower incomes, middle incomes, to own their own homes, that have been very successful. I mean, the state of New York Mortgage Agency is one major driver of increasing the number of homeowners in New York State who first-time homeowners, and you know, it's something that is an extremely important part of what we're trying to do. It's also, for some people find it to be a burden and would rather be renters. I think the whole thing here is to give people as many options as possible to find what's right for them. And, you know, a rent-to-own option would be really interesting. It's a little bit more challenging, but something that could be done.
So, and Victoria's my witness. I said this to her in the back before this panel. Homeownership, I think, is a massive growth opportunity. Like I said earlier, we're not building starter homes anymore. I think there's a huge sea of people who would love to own a home, and there's just no resource right now. So there's a few ways, in my opinion, that affordable home ownership can happen. One, low land costs. Of course, churches have land, but cities have land too, right? There's also organizations like Habitat for Humanity that will take people through home ownership classes. They get a low down payment, and rumor has it, you can get a 2% mortgage if you go through Habitat's program. So a super low mortgage, which will help reduce the burden on the costs on building the buildings. Now, the state of New York, the AHOP program, it's okay. It's there. Rumor has it New York City's open door program is about to significantly increase the amount that developers can use toward homeownership. And we'll see. I've been hearing for the last 3 weeks that it's going to come out. But I agree with you. I think there's a massive opportunity. I think LIHTC solves a short-term problem. It creates housing for those who need it, and it is amazing housing. But long-term, it doesn't give you equity, right? So it solves your immediate problem. I think creating affordable home ownership is important. I think one of the quirks we got with our co-ops is limited equity co-ops, and some of them keep your equity down. And there's a debate about, well, at what point should that person enjoy the equity that's been created by living in that neighborhood for 20 years? At some point, right, they should be able to tap that equity because their kids going to college or their spouse has surgery, that they should be able to tap the equity just like everybody else. So yes, I agree. There's not a lot of resources for affordable homeownership, but I agree with you. That is an opportunity that we should spend more time on. Again, if you look up Habitat for Humanity, they're actually working on it as a great young sister named Sabrina who runs that organization for New York.